So, an emergency session of Congress has just been called, and the word on Capitol Hill is that Trump could face immediate removal from office. Warren Buffett, who rarely comments on day-to-day politics, just broke his silence with a statement that's sending shockwaves through the financial markets. It's honestly hard to believe he said that out loud. The Oracle of Omaha, who's been notably quiet about Trump's recent actions, just declared that the constitutional crisis has reached a point where market stability itself is at risk. This isn't just about politics anymore. We're talking about the very foundations of American democracy and now, apparently, the entire global economy. And trust me, when Warren Buffett starts talking about constitutional crises, Wall Street listens. Let me fill you in on what's been happening. Donald Trump returned to the presidency in January 2025 after defeating Kamala Harris. From the get-go, he seemed determined to reshape the federal government in ways we've never seen before. Whether it was firing inspectors general, replacing career civil servants with loyalists, or attempting to bypass Congress on budget matters, Trump really cemented himself as someone who views constitutional constraints as mere suggestions. But here's where the rubber meets the road. We're now 3 weeks into what insiders are calling the most serious constitutional standoff since Watergate. Federal funding for multiple agencies has been frozen. Career diplomats are being recalled en masse. Military leaders are openly questioning the chain of command. This mess is unfolding because Trump and Congress are at a complete standoff over his attempt to unilaterally redirect billions in appropriated funds without congressional approval. And guess who's stuck right in the middle? Yep, every single member of Congress who took an oath to defend the Constitution. And before we go any further, let's be real for a second. The situation is complex, with legal arguments on multiple sides, but the core issue is straightforward. Can a president simply ignore Congress when it comes to spending taxpayer money? Now, back to the matter at hand. Reports from around October 23rd revealed just how furious Trump was with Republican senators who dared question his authority. He labeled Senator Susan Collins' proposed compromise as treasonous backstabbing, and even went as far as to say she was worse than the Democrats. Talk about strong words. Essentially, Trump was calling anyone who didn't fall in line a traitor for not sticking to his exact wishes. And this wasn't a private conversation. Trump made sure to air his grievances publicly on Truth Social, making it clear that he was not happy with any Republican showing independence. This announcement sent shockwaves through the GOP because it raised all sorts of questions. If Trump, the party leader himself, could turn against moderate Republicans, what did that mean for everyone else, scrambling to maintain their political futures? Now, this isn't the first time we've seen this. Trump's loyalty really only extends to himself. Whenever someone stops being useful or does something he doesn't like, he's quick to turn on them. We've spotted this pattern time and time again. Just think about how he turned on Jeff Sessions right after Sessions recused himself from the Russia investigation. Trump went from calling him a great senator to tweeting daily attacks, ultimately forcing him out of office. Sessions' political career in Alabama, once rock solid, was completely destroyed. Then there was Bill Barr. Trump wasn't pleased when Barr stated there was no evidence of widespread election fraud in 2020. Within days, Trump was calling his former Attorney General weak and a disappointment, effectively ending their relationship and Barr's influence in Trump circles. And let's not forget how he distanced himself from Mike Pence when Pence refused to overturn the election results on January 6th. Trump's supporters literally chanted about hanging his own vice president, while Trump remained silent for hours. Even Kevin McCarthy faced a similar fate when he initially criticized Trump after January 6th. Though McCarthy later tried to repair the relationship, Trump never forgot and was notably absent when McCarthy needed support during his speakership battles. Now, it looks like moderate Senate Republicans are in the hot seat. Here's where it gets interesting. This pattern is becoming all too familiar. You can show all the loyalty in the world and defend Trump every single day, but the moment you step out of line or cease to be useful, he'll toss you aside without a second thought. So, what did these senators do to tick off Trump? Well, it all boils down to the Constitution's separation of powers. The impasse happened because Trump wanted to redirect $47 billion in congressionally approved funds to his border wall and deportation programs, while Congress was trying to maintain their constitutional authority over spending. Ultimately, several agencies just shut down since no one was willing to budge. As the crisis deepened, a group of Republican senators decided to take a measured stance. They supported Trump's policy goals but refused to abandon their constitutional duties. Their approach seemed to be finding a middle ground that would give Trump some of what he wanted while preserving congressional authority. At first, Trump seemed to be on board with this idea. He appreciates displays of strength and the notion of Republicans standing together. But as the shutdown dragged into its third week, some issues started cropping up. Essential government services ground to a halt, passport offices closed their doors, and Social Security offices stopped processing new claims. While Trump's base remained steadfast and holding their ground, predictably, the public began to shift their blame toward Republicans overall. Polls indicated that Americans were increasingly frustrated with what they saw as a manufactured crisis. Now here's the kicker. This was the moment Trump began to sweat a little. You see, Trump values winning, maintaining power, and overall public perception. He doesn't want to be tied to a shutdown that's hurting ordinary Americans. That's definitely not the victory he seeks. And then moderate Republicans went ahead and made a move that, according to Trump, was a serious misstep. Senator Collins started looking for ways to compromise and figured she should work with Democrats on a bipartisan solution. She even considered supporting a continuing resolution that would fund the government while negotiations continued. But then, when Trump caught wind of all this, he absolutely lost it. In Trump's eyes, compromising is just a sign of weakness. Working with Democrats, that's pure betrayal. Any Republican who dares to break ranks is instantly labeled a traitor. Let's break this down. This left moderate Republicans in a tight spot. On one side, they really need Trump's backing to survive their primaries. The MAGA base will drop them like a hot potato if Trump gives the signal. On the flip side, they actually have to govern and face voters in general elections. That means figuring out how to keep the government running, maintain essential services, and not look like extremists. The tricky part is, all of that requires some level of compromise and bipartisan cooperation. So they're caught in a bind. They can either keep trying to please Trump, which means holding the line no matter what, and that only makes the crisis worse and paints Republicans in a bad light. Or they can do their actual jobs as senators, which means working across the aisle. But that'll definitely make Trump turn against them. It's a tough situation, and that's the mess Trump creates for Republican leaders. He demands complete loyalty and wants them to fight without budging. But then he points fingers when things go south. He's not shy about tossing them under the bus whenever it suits him. This whole scenario is causing major stress within the Republican Party. If Trump has turned on Susan Collins and is willing to publicly undermine his own allies, every GOP senator is left wondering if they're the next target. Those moderates who are trying to balance serving their constituents with party loyalty are now worried sick about being the next one to get tossed aside. Meanwhile, the MAGA wing believes Collins and others aren't fighting hard enough and that they're too open to compromise. Things became even more intense when Mitch McConnell, one of the most strategic Republicans in the Senate, broke away from Trump's position. He had been pushing for a more sustainable solution and criticized Trump for creating an unnecessary crisis. When someone as politically savvy as McConnell starts turning against you, you know you're in a world of hurt. But wait, there's more. The situation took a dramatic legal turn when a federal judge stepped into the fray. On October 26th, Judge Sarah Morrison of the D.C. Circuit filed an emergency ruling stating that Trump's attempt to redirect funds without congressional approval was a flagrant violation of the Constitution's Appropriations Clause. She pointed out that the founders specifically gave Congress the power of the purse to prevent exactly this kind of executive overreach. The legal process moved pretty quickly, and the judge recognized the urgency. After all, Every day the crisis continued meant more damage to democratic norms and public services. And let me tell you, the judge didn't hold back with the ruling. It was a major blow for Trump. The judge declared that Trump's actions were constitutionally indefensible and a clear abuse of executive power. That's legal speak for saying, you've got no solid ground to stand on here. There's no legal validity to what you're doing. You're just abusing your power. Judge Morrison calling out Trump by name created a real stir. It's a significant move, reminding Trump that he isn't above the Constitution. This is a huge deal that doesn't usually happen in functioning democracies. Legal experts are noting that we haven't seen a federal court rebuke a president this strongly since the Nixon era. Jonathan Turley, a conservative constitutional scholar who's not exactly known for opposing Republican presidents, went on Fox News and made a statement that really should catch everyone's attention. He said that the court's language is unusually harsh because the violation is unusually clear. This isn't a gray area of executive authority. Just think about that for a moment, when even conservative legal voices are saying the president clearly violated the Constitution, and this is coming from a regular Fox News contributor. Andrew McCarthy, a former federal prosecutor and National Review columnist, mentioned that if this ruling stands, it essentially tells Trump he cannot govern by decree. The implications for his entire second-term agenda are staggering. When legal experts from both sides start tossing around terms like constitutionally indefensible and clear violation, that's the moment to really pay attention. So, let's break down what this showdown could mean, because it's not just a captivating constitutional story. It has serious consequences for how our democracy operates. First up is the immediate political fallout. Trump is already facing significant backlash due to the ongoing crisis, and his approval ratings are taking a hit. According to a YouGov poll from October 27th, 58% of Americans blame Trump for the shutdown, including 23% of Republicans. GOP representatives are getting anxious about the upcoming 2026 midterms, which is definitely adding to the tension. The emergency congressional session being called. And honestly, that's not the best look for him. Most folks in America have a good deal of respect for constitutional limits as a vital part of our system, even if they don't always agree with specific policies. Democrats are definitely planning to take advantage of this situation. They'll argue that Trump believes he's above the Constitution and does not hold the rule of law in high regard, and they'll have a federal judge's ruling backing up those claims. This is going to be Exhibit A in proving that Trump poses a fundamental threat to democracy. You can expect to see Judge Morrison's words popping up in Democratic campaign ads, speeches, and debates. Now, let's touch on what this means for our institutions themselves. Chief Justice John Roberts has been working hard to keep the Supreme Court out of political battles, wanting it to be viewed as above partisan influence. But if this case reaches the High Court, they'll be wading right into a political controversy. Trump and his supporters are now poised to attack the entire federal judiciary, implying bias and questioning their motives, which complicates things for the court's image as neutral arbiters. Yet, Judge Morrison probably felt she had no other choice. If she stayed silent while Trump violated the Constitution, the judiciary's credibility would take an even bigger hit. This situation shines a massive spotlight on the separation of powers. At the heart of the issue is whether a president can just ignore Congress whenever he feels like it. If Trump gets his way on that, it could totally change how our government operates. The founders designed our system with checks and balances specifically to prevent any one person from accumulating too much power. Congress controls spending precisely so presidents can't become kings who rule by decree. But Trump has always been uncomfortable with those limitations. He craves total control over everything. If his violations are allowed to stand, that's a significant boost to executive power, and it opens the door for future presidents to misuse that power. So, the implications of this case reach far beyond just Trump and Congress. It's about shaping the structure of American democracy for many years to come. Each time Trump brushes aside norms, breaks laws, or attacks institutions, It weakens our democratic systems. It starts making behavior that used to be completely unacceptable feel normal. Think about it. If Trump can redirect billions without congressional approval, what's to stop the next president from doing the same? If he can just ignore court rulings whenever he wants, what's to prevent another president from following that lead? These actions don't just disappear when Trump leaves office. They become part of our new reality, and that's pretty dangerous. Democracy relies on those norms and institutions, assuming that people in power will play by the rules, even when it's a bit inconvenient. When those norms crumble, democracy itself starts to falter. Looking ahead to the 2026 midterms, it's clear that all of this is going to have some significant effects. We're still over a year out from those elections, but the narrative being set now is bound to influence how things go. If the story playing out is one of Trump battling every institution and coming out on the losing side, that spells trouble for Republicans. Voters usually don't reward chaos and dysfunction. They want stability and competence. Right now, Trump isn't offering either of those. So expect Democrats to champion a message focused on restoring constitutional governance. After years of chaos under Trump, there are folks who believe that if you vote for them, Congress will actually start working again. They're promising no more constant constitutional crises or battles with federal judges, just good old normal governance. That message might just hit home for a lot of voters, including some moderate Republicans. And here's where Warren Buffett enters the picture. His statement today wasn't just about politics. He specifically warned that continued constitutional instability poses a greater threat to American markets than any economic indicator. For someone who's weathered every crisis from the 1987 crash to the 2008 financial meltdown, that's an extraordinary statement. When Buffett speaks, institutional investors listen. And his words today suggest that even Wall Street is starting to worry that Trump's norm-breaking could fundamentally damage American stability. So, here's the deal. An emergency session of Congress has been called to address whether Trump should face immediate removal for violating his constitutional oath. This isn't just about a government shutdown or a budget dispute. It's about whether the President of the United States can simply ignore the Constitution when it's inconvenient. If Trump gets away with this, then we're basically saying constitutional limits don't matter anymore. That would mean we're stepping into a completely new realm where presidential power has no meaningful constraints. It's about so much more than just this immediate crisis. It's about